Hello, welcome to Master Mathematics. My name is Mr. A, and in this video, you are going to learn how to solve two-step equations. So when you look at this, the first thing that might stand out to you is, Mr. A, this is supposed to be two steps, yet you have three listed. Yes, I have one more step listed. It's the first step, and it's fairly straightforward, but it's really important, and it's going to matter, and it's great that you build this habit of this first step. When you get into multi-step equations that have like more than one operation and they've got more than one variable. So I use three steps. Yes, it's technically two-step equations, but we're adding one more. And also, speaking of steps, make sure you take the extra step of liking this video, subscribing to the channel, checking out social media in the description. All right, so let's get right into the work. Step number one here says to identify the variable and the operation in the equation. So let's look at our first example here, which is 6x minus 8 equals 40. We're going to identify the variable first, which is x, and the operation, which is subtraction. So that's step one, done already. That's the one I add in, and again, that's the one that's going to help you down the line when you're, working in more advanced math. Step number two, you are going to begin by clearing any addition or subtraction using the inverse operation. So inverse means opposite. So we identified the operation in this first example as subtraction. So the opposite of subtraction, of course, is addition. So we are going to add, and what we are going to add is 8 to each side of the equation, right? We want to get the variable by itself. So in order to do that, we need to get that 8 out of there. And the way to do that is to add it, use the inverse, to each side of the operation. So let's look at the left side of the equal sign. Of negative 8 plus 8, that's going to equal 0. We can just cross that out. No need to keep that there. And then 40 plus 8 is 48. So I'm going to write 48 right underneath here. And then I'm going to bring down the rest of the equation, which is my equal sign and the 6x. I should say the rest of the equation that I didn't use. All right, now we are on to step three. Step number three says to use the inverse operation. So again, we're going to use the opposite operation to isolate the variable on one side of the equation. Now, you might be looking at the 6x and saying, Mr. A, there's no operation there. But actually there is. When you have a number next to a variable like this, that means multiplication. So what it means is 6 times x. So multiplication, the opposite is division. So we're going to divide each side by 6 and then solve it. So 6 divided by 6 is 1. We don't need to write 1 because any number times 1 is itself. So we don't need to write it. Instead, I like to just cross it out and then write x. And I'm just writing over here because I ran out of room down there. So x equals 48 divided by 6, which is 8. And that's it. That's your answer for that first example. Now, let's look at our second example here, which is 15 equals 4n plus 3. So step number one, again, we are going to identify the variable and the operation in the equation. The variable is n, and the operation is addition. Okay, we've got those identified. Now on to step two. We need to clear it using the inverse operation. So the inverse in this one is subtraction, right? Because our initial one is addition, so we have to subtract. That's different, right? It's the opposite of what we did in the first example. So we subtract 3 from each side, and 3 minus 3 is 0. So cross that out. And 15 minus 3 is 12. And then again, we bring down everything else in the equation that we did not use, which is the equal sign and the 4n. Now we're on to step number 3. And step number 3 says to use the inverse operation to isolate the variable on one side of the equation. So again, we have that number next to a variable, which means multiplication. So we need to divide each side by 4. And we have, I'm going to work on the variable side first. 4 divided by 4 is 1, so we're going to cross that out. And 12 divided by 4 is 3. Again, I'm going to write my answer over here. 3 equals n. And there you have it. That, my friends, is how to solve two-step equations. Thank you so much for being here. Once again, my name is Mr. A. This channel is Master Mathematics. Until the next one, Adios.